Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome. I'm so excited. Today we're talking about brain breaks. Let's use that brain. Let's make it more focused, more retention in learning, more memory, more all of this stuff because we are really talking about the effective brain breaks. This is something that Spencer Aiken, who's with us today, thank you for joining us. He's very well versed in not only physical fitness, but physical literacy. And I love that we talk about this. If you haven't heard the podcast episodes that we've done with Spencer before, go back and listen to those because they are absolutely fantastic. We have a couple actually specifically focused on the difference between physical activity and physical literacy. But today we're talking about brain breaks and how to use those effectively. And Spencer knows a lot about this. He is really well versed in teaching not only kids, but teaching educators to teach kids about physical literacy and how to use your body in the best way to make learning more effective, make it better for focus and all of the things that we could do to help our brain more active. And so that is why I'm excited about this today, because this is something that is talked about a lot. And we kind of all know that we should be doing some kind of physical brain break.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that we know is that we're just like, okay, we'll just go play. And there are actually some things you can do what is that word again? Intentionally
Yes.
to make it more effective. And so Spencer is a super amazing expert at this, and I want him to share with you right now. Spencer, could you just share a little bit about what is your interest in teaching kids and in helping them learn better, and also specifically about brain breaks? I know you've been talking about this a lot lately on your social and in your school platform. So what is it about that that's so effective for us?
Physical education has gone off the rails. Let's just say that. We want to focus on things that aren't necessarily helping kids develop to the best of their ability. We're trying to pigeonhole kids into this little program where you have to go and do this when kids are different. We are so varied, but we're trying to get them into that little hole. Now, some kids are round, some kids are square, and they're all going into that triangle hole. It doesn't work. So physical education, the actual class of physical education, became hey, you're going to go and do this sport, okay? It's gameplay, it's sport play, and it's not necessarily focused on physical literacy anymore. Now, through studies and classes bear it out, that's why most classes are about 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes on average, and then you go to your other classroom, right? So especially in high school, 50-minute class, 10 minutes to get to the next class, because the brain can only focus for so long, right? It's why adults go and take a water break or a coffee break or, unfortunately still, a smoke break. They just need to get up and move around. And what a lot of adults do is they'll just get up, go walk to the water fountain, take a couple sips, and walk back to their desk. They need a type of moment. Well, if adults need it, why wouldn't kids need it? Because it's the same person, just a little bit older and maybe a little bit more pain from getting old and injuries and all that. So where do we go off the rails? Somewhere around middle school to high school, we start taking away recess. We start taking away, hey, let's do this fun activity, right? So homeschool parents need to understand that there's a better methodology for getting your kids to focus. It isn't doing it more. Okay, so we're looking at the chalkboard, the whiteboard, the computer screen, the iPad, and we're just staring at it, stare. And then parents get frustrated because you're like, well, why aren't they retaining any of this information? So take a step back, take a deep breath. Let's go do something, and then we'll come back to that lesson. Those are what brain breaks are. Give your kids a chance to start thinking of stuff. Free play is an amazing brain break, possibly the easiest one in the world. Hey, we're going to go outside. We're going to get into our natural environment, and we're just going to go have a couple of minutes, 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes of you just be creative. Well, what are we teaching and instilling in kids? First of all, creativity, right? Number one, kids are the best at being creative, but we've been slowly zapping that away from our kids, especially after COVID, where everyone had to stay indoors. You had to avoid other people, physical contact and or social contact, right? So we're programming kids to be these robots of, right? Like sitting in a cubicle all day like adults. Who wants that? Especially not kids. And then as educators, we're like, why aren't kids paying attention anymore? Kids are getting worse at being able to focus. Test scores are going down, which don't get me going off on test scores. That's a whole different problem that they want to create. But
I feel you.
Yeah. So we need to realize kids are based in being active. Number one. So we took away their physical education. We took away their recess. We took away all of their burning off of that excess energy. And then we wonder why they can't sit still in a desk. I wonder why that is. Brain breaks can be the solution. There are multiple things we should be doing throughout the day, but brain breaks are a nice, easy way of adding 5 to 10 minutes every hour, if possible. That's not has to be. Remember, a lot of the structure has to go away. We need a cognitive thinking of, well, this is what makes sense today. 40 minutes of a really hard lesson may be too much. 30 minutes, let's go do a little 5-minute exercise, get the brain moving, the body moving. We're going to be better off. They're going to start to retain more. They're going to be focused more. They're also going to burn off some of that energy, and then they can go and sit back and do the lesson again versus, hey, you didn't learn it the first time. You didn't learn it the second time. You didn't learn it the third time. Well, let's just try the fourth, fifth, and sixth time. It's not working.
That sounds like school.
Exactly. So,
You know, it's so funny that you talk about that because my mom she does a lot of consulting. She does a lot of professional development for physical educators, and she's a retired physical educator. And so she was just telling me the other day how when she goes into, she has to watch herself because when she goes to the room of physical educators and she says, you know, like, okay, every one of you, I'm sure, believes that you are not the one that just throws out the ball, right? Just throws, you know, that kind of thing.
yeah.
However, if you tell me, if I ask you the question, what were you working on this week with your students? And you said baseball or kickball, I'm going to, you're that type of person.
You're that teacher. Because that's what gameplay is. That's what
Yeah.
sports are. Now,
Yeah.
kids who want to play those sports are already probably playing those sports. That's not physical education. That's not physical literacy.
Right.
That's
Right.
sports.
Right.
I love sports. I will play sports hopefully to the rest of my life. I played it all growing up, and I will never demean sports, but sports are not necessarily education. We're not learning skill development. We're learning gameplay. We're learning cooperation. We're learning team building. We're learning all the positives of that, but those are more mental. Those are more how to work with others. But we're not developing the individual schools of physical literacy, flexibility, balance, targeting skills like being able to touch your fingers without looking at them, like just even walking without looking at your feet, right? Those are all physical literacy skills that kids are losing because they're not getting it in recess anymore because they took away a lot of recess. They're not getting it in physical education because they made it a game or a sport that a lot of kids don't necessarily care about. I love volleyball. It's not my sport, but I love to watch it. It's a great sport. Super exciting. But if we have a 2-week lesson on volleyball and you're never going to be learning the exact specifics of setting, learning the exact specifics of bumping, and learning the exact specifics of hitting or spiking, what are you really developing? You're not developing something that's going to carry over for the rest of your life. So what are we really, truly trying to do with physical education? We have to get back to the physical literacy skills of strength, movement, balance, stability, flexibility, targeting skills. Now, the easiest way to do that is short attention span time frames. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No one, excuse me, no one really needs to do it for an hour, but 10 minutes has a very significant amount of benefit for most kids to be doing. And there's very few things that kids cannot pay attention to for 10 minutes, right? We've all
Yeah.
seen the kids where they kind of just mentally check out because they're doing something. And then there's always one kid kind of staring off into the fields while they're doing it. Well, that's because you, as the educator, didn't do a good enough, a qualified enough job to keep their attention. Shorten the duration, make it more involved. Now we're on the right track.
Yeah, and I love that talking about the short duration, so the brain breaks, and how I want to talk about the specifics of that a little bit, because I was doing a little bit of looking into what were some of the skills of, what we could do to help our kids' brains more. And if you haven't, last a couple weeks ago, or actually I think it was last month, we did an episode with Dr. Robert Malello where episode 71, talk about brain balance. And so
Yep.
having a brain balance there, and it really, when kids are studying, when they're learning, they're using probably more one side of the brain than the other.
Yep.
And so that brain side gets fatigued. And
Yep.
so or it gets accentuated in growth. And then we don't focus on the other
Yeah.
side. And one of the beauties, I think, of physical brain breaks is that, and physical activity brain breaks, is that we can use that to help balance the brain. So I was looking up some things, and I saw perpetual motor development skills was one of the things that I've seen talked about, where you're doing like a lot of crossing the center line stuff.
Yep, what we call cross-body coordination, or at least what I call cross-body coordination. So the number one complaint I get about adults is their lack of balance. And why do they lose their balance? Because they lose cross-body coordination. The way that the body works best is if I'm reaching with my right hand, I need to maintain my center of gravity by extending my left side. So I'm cross-body coordinating. So as I step and throw, I step with my left and I throw with my right. Cross-body coordination. The body has its left side step, its left side and right side rotation, and you're throwing with your right hand. Same with your left hand, right? So we don't learn that skill if we're not actively trying to do that. Short durational activities help with learning cross-body coordination. It's a skill that can be worked on easily and with a fun intent, because remember, in the background of everything is making it fun so the kids want to do it. So we do a lot of ambidextrous work, trying to work on your non-dominant hand, trying to work on your dominant hand. And at the workshops that I do on ambidextrous action for kids, I tell them, all right, here's your goal for the end of the day. Tell me if I'm left-handed or tell me if I'm right-handed. Okay? So far, I'm pretty good at getting the answer wrong for my students.
I love that.
Our physical education teachers, because I grew up working on my left. I grew up working on my right. Now, I am ambidextrous, which is sort of how my brain said, hey, more people need to understand this skill, because guess what? What happens if you hurt your dominant hand and then you can't use everything? So yes, right. I can write with my left. I can write with my right. I can throw with my left. I can throw with my right. And as a person who gets injured a lot, yep, that's me. I'm unfortunate. I hurt my shoulder, right? But I work with a lot of kids who want to play catch. Ooh, where's the problem in that? I cannot. This is going to be painful right here. Right there is super painful, so I can't finish a throw, a little shoulder injury. I even have a little lidocaine strip on there right now. But guess what I can do because I practiced it? I can throw left-handed with all my kids. So for the past 2 weeks, I've been doing left-handed drills with my kid, and you won't notice a difference because through short durational activities, I learned the step formula of step with your right, throw with your left, the coordinations of cross-body coordinations. It makes life easier. And when you unfortunately do get hurt, you can simply use your other hand because it became not a weak hand, it became a usable, viable option.
Yeah, I'm actually ambidextrous in a lot of ways too, because I write left-handed, so like I can actually do a lot of things ambidextrous, and I played water polo too, so like that's a very ambidextrous sport. But or it should be.
But hopefully it's because if in water polo, someone's got your right hand holding. How are you going to throw the ball if someone's trying to pull you down by your right side? You simply switch it and throw with your left, and they don't expect it. You become better naturally.
Absolutely, yeah. And thinking about how it affects the brain, so we're using in studies, and we're doing a lot of reading, a lot of watching, a lot of whatever. There's not the creative aspect of that right side really getting stimulated necessarily
Yeah.
all the time unless we're doing art or music or something like that, right?
Yep.
And so having that be focused on for so long, then we don't, this becomes more and this becomes less. So it really balancing that brain and making that like a regular activity is
Yeah.
really huge. And something else that that I heard a lot about was like what you talked about before, the functional movements. So functional movement skills, so that like and touching your fingers to
Yep.
your knee, touching your fingers to your knee, or
Touching your left knee to your right hand. Yep.
right, that kind of stuff is really, I felt like that's a really interesting activity for kids to, focus on and getting their brain balanced, but also in a functional way where it's like
Yep.
stuff we're doing every day.
So most of targeting skills. Okay, so let me real quick explain targeting. Targeting marries spatial awareness, knowing where you are distance-wise. It's like I can touch the wall behind me without slamming into the wall. That's spatial. I know the distance by my brain figuring it out by knowing spaces, right? Kinesthetic awareness is knowing where you are in space. So where my elbow is right here, I can touch it, right? So marrying those two together is targeting. Now, when we don't practice those skills, we lose those skills. Okay, how many kids are born with the ability to walk? Raise your hand if you were born with your ability to walk. Exactly. We have to practice those skills. So kids wait, at 3, 4, and 5, they start walking, or 2, 3, 4, and 5, they start walking. Then they start running. Then they start not tripping. Then they start not falling down on their butt. Why did we not realize that what they're doing is they're learning, practicing, and mastering the skill of walking? Same with targeting. We have to learn, practice, and master. We probably all did this skill as a kid where you rub your belly and pat your head. Okay, ready? Try it out. I bet it's simple and easy for you. But when you were 8 years old and you did it for the first time, you were probably all over the board. Okay? Now, as adults, it becomes an easy skill. Even though I haven't done this one in years, you can do it. Then you can switch, right? It's a skill that becomes ingrained, but we never practice it. We are telling kids, you don't have to worry about those skills because the life is now on computers or iPads, so they sit. Well, life skills are health skills, movement skills, strength skills, the skills that make life easier, but we're not practicing them. So we need to find a way to add those into the curriculum. But a lot of times we're so focused on math skills, geography, and those are great subjects. But remember, there's only one subject that continues with us every day of our life throughout our entire adulthood and through our life, right? That's physical health skills. So doing stuff that makes us better at moving and coordinating should be a very important subject. It's just hard to program in a duration length that isn't, oh, we got to do this again. Brain breaks help with that. Break it up into 10 minutes. I tell people 3 to 5 brain breaks a day gives you your 60 minutes of activity that we're supposed to be striving for without it being, oh, we have to do this for 40 more minutes. Because let's be honest, if it's not something that's super, super just play, kids will have their brains wander a little bit. And that's what we're trying to avoid, because kids naturally, maybe unnaturally, want to be doing something else. Whatever it is, they always want to be doing something else. There's always some other option that sounds more appealing, which is why a free play aspect is involved. So we will do let's say a 2-minute drill and then say, all right, you have 2 minutes to kind of just free play. Let them be creative, because they'll start running around and doing, and then you may actually, as the educator, say, ooh, that's a really good drill. I like that. And then you start to include it because A, the kids enjoyed it. B, they came up with themselves, so they're part of the program and the curriculum, but you're allowing them to be kids versus just sitting going, right? Think about it. It's been since the early 19th century when we actually just sat in classrooms. We made it through all of civilization up until the mid-19th century when they said, all right, now for the next 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you're going to sit in front of a chalkboard and just go and take notes. And now we're getting worse and worse at physical labor. So
Yeah, so I want to get into like more of like the retention and that kind of stuff in a second, but you said something that really kind of, and I feel like we've talked about this, we might have talked about this before, but I want to make sure that we cover it because for kids, that spatial awareness, that body awareness,
yep,
it comes, it develops over time, and for it develops at different ages and different
yep,
levels. So I'm just curious because my son, he actually took quite a long time before and he was doing physical, things. He was doing martial arts and swimming and things like that, but like how his awareness of like, oh, my hand's actually over here when it needs to be over here, like
yeah.
I didn't even know I was doing that. That kind
So
of body awareness didn't come till later. So can we accelerate that by doing more intentional movement?
yeah, but okay, there's a negative drawback to that. Well,
Okay.
not what you said, but there's a understanding of what goes on as we are growing. Remember our
Right.
growing pains, our growth spurts? Remember, kinesthetic awareness is knowing where we are in space. Well, if we went from a 2-inch long to a 4-inch long to a 6-inch long leg, right,
Yeah.
or an
Yeah.
arm, now the distances are off.
Right.
So our
Right.
stride length changes. Our
Yes.
arm is now farther away. So there may be three stages of skill development, right? Or cognitive, associative, and autonomous. We may have to go back to the previous ability level
Right.
to move forward, especially as we hit our growth spurts in general age of being a teenager. 12 years old, 11 years old for some, but some are developing at 18. I developed a little bit later than most kids my age. I really think I've hit my developmental stage at around 18, 19. Most kids are around 15, 16. I didn't come out of my shell until then. There's nothing wrong with that. Guess what? I'll have a happy long life, hopefully till my 90s, but I developed the skills later. It doesn't matter when you develop them, just as long as you develop them, right? So part of it is understanding that everyone has a potential setback where we will go from the learning stage to the practice stage to the mastery stage. We may have to go back to the practice stage, and we may have to take a step back on the skill that we're capable of doing. So with balance, with martial arts, he may have been great at doing his kicks, and all of a sudden now his range of motion, his movement pattern is different. So
Yeah.
he's wondering in his brain, why can't I just grasp this anymore? Well, because your whole balance point is off.
Right.
Your footwork is off. Your foot may even grow, right? If you went from a size 6 to a size 10 over the course of a summer, well, now your foundation is different. So
Yeah.
we have to understand and let kids understand, teach them to understand that setbacks happen. You may go from cognitive to associative to autonomous, and you may have to take a step back. That's why it's a continual learning of learn, practice, master, and you will keep getting better and better. But there are certain skills that may all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not quite sure of this. Secondarily, there is a neural recognition that goes on every time we do a skill. So no one goes into a basketball game cold where they're like, okay, I'm just going to go. All right, here's the tip. Start the game. Let's go. We have warm-ups, right? Well,
Right.
why are we warming up? Well, part of it is to get the muscles ready. Part of it is to loosen up the joints and be heart rate ready. But part of it is to remember the skill of shooting. Our brain has to recognize. That's why the first time we ever take a shot in basketball, I might be like, ooh, that was way off. Is because our brain has to remember, oh, yeah, I know that. And that goes on every time we do a skill for the first time. Whether we took one day off or a week off or a year off, we'll remember it. That's why they say, once you learn how to ride a bike, you don't forget, or you never forget, but you may be a little wobbly when you first get
Maybe a
back
little
on that bike.
rusty.
Yeah,
For
you're a
sure.
little
Yeah.
rusty. Our brain gets rusty because it's busy doing other things,
Yeah.
but we
I,
will,
I I'm
we
I'm
will
rusty
learn it again.
too.
Yeah. So,
For sure. I don't think that's made for adults.
okay.
But anywho, I definitely want to talk about, yeah, I love that. And I can see that in my son as he's grown up, he's taller than me now. And it's that whole center of gravity and the whole thing, but he can definitely see, and I've seen him have to go back and say, like, I didn't know my leg was like not even there. And
Yeah.
so he has to kind of renegotiate that. And that's one thing that I think also applies to studying as far as we're doing academic work, and then we trigger our brains to be more active because it kind of like after a while our brains kind of go to
Shut down.
sleep, right? Our brains kind of
Hibernation mode.
yeah, hibernation mode, exactly. And especially when we have long periods of time, and you can see that in your kids when they're getting
Yep.
fussy or they're getting squiggly or something
Yep.
like that. And then that's a trigger to, whoo, we might need
Yep.
a brain break, right?
Yes. So, a quick note on that: best laid plans can go awry. So we may be like, "Hey, we're gonna do this for 30 minutes,"
Right.
and you get 10 minutes into something, you're like, "This just isn't working." We as educators have to be adaptable to our kids, so we have to realize, okay, I wasn't gonna do this for then until then. Now, along the same lines as we may have in our minds the greatest activity for them to do during a brain break, and it's like, oh, this just doesn't seem to be working today. Because kids are kids and kids are allowed to be kids. Okay. Kids are not an employee where you simply can say, you're going to go do this and it's due by Tuesday and I want it on my desk by then, right? That doesn't work with kids. So we as educators have to be adaptable of, hey, I wanted to try this. You know what? We did try it. It just didn't work. We may not be ready for it. So we may come revisit it. But if we can adapt, we are going to adapt. That's why I don't say it's a hard and fast rule. You're going to do a 10-minute brain break, because if it's working on the kids and it's giving them the skills that we're trying to improve, and it's, hey, we've run to 20 minutes now, let's just keep going. The beauty of homeschooling is we really do control the schedule versus the classroom bell just rang. We have to go sit in the classroom again. So if you find an activity that's really working today, keep doing it. Now, having said that, tomorrow it may not work again. That's why we have to be constantly learning new things as educators, is because we have to stay one step ahead of the kids.
Yeah, I
Hopefully
feel like
true,
the
but
biggest question as we're talking about this, and the thing I keep coming back to is, as a parent, we're like, okay, so they're having fun on a brain break, and then I have to pull them back in.
yeah.
And that seems hard because they're like, whatever, we're still la, 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 and still squiggly, or they're loving what they're doing. And then I have to bring them back in. So is there a way to regulate down the level of energy to where we can move back into something more or
Three
less
things,
physical?
three things that generally work. A quick snack. Quick snack is the easiest thing, because kids will be, hey, we're just going to have an apple or a string cheese, because they're going to go and most likely they're going to sit down while they do it. All right. So allowing kids to have a snack while you're redoing or restarting the actual education lesson, right? Okay. I say that in quotes because physical education should be learning, right? Okay. Hopefully that's why it's called physical education. So give them a chance to kind of slowly settle down. I don't like to hard stop on anything. It's like, all right, boom, move
Me
on.
neither.
That
Right.
doesn't work very well, right? So we
Yes.
take that slow pace. Now, secondarily, a skill that works is breathing. I don't want to call it meditation, because if you tell kids we're going to breathe and we're going to meditate for the next 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, they don't necessarily focus. But if we say, all right, big deep breath in, big deep breath out, they're gonna attune to that. Now they may be wandering as they're doing it, and their eyes may be wandering, and their brain is thinking about other stuff. But you allow them to have their brain wanders. A beauty of meditation is your brain actually wanders where it wants to go. So you can do a 10-minute brain break, a 2 to 3 minute breathing brain break of. But one thing I don't like to do is to hard and fast stop.
Yes.
Jump right back into the lesson.
Yes.
And
That's never going to
the
work.
third thing I was going to say is generally give them a chance to get a sip of water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will always tell kids, hey, get a sip of water if you want a sip of water, especially when I transition from drill or exercise or drill skill to free play to let's come back to the drill again. I
Right.
will always let them get a chance to get a sip of water, because naturally sipping on water, what does it do? It calms us down. We're not running around with a cup in our hand, spilling it everywhere. They'll go to the water fountain, get a little sip, and then you can say, hey, come on back with me. That makes it easier for them to walk back into what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, seriously, my mom and I'm telling you, great PE teachers have such a wonderful transition mode activity like
Yep.
range, because there is nothing harder than getting to switch gears when you're doing some physical
Yep.
activity. It is genius. I'm telling you, it's
Yep.
genius. I love it.
The
So
practice
those are
skill
some
we
great.
master.
Yes, absolutely. So I love that. I had to ask that question because I know that's going on in my mind, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing the kids like, an hour later, we're still not coming back. And so having
Yeah.
that intentionality, and then also knowing that that's a routine that we have, right? So that's
Yep.
a routine. We do this and then we come, so everybody has that expectation. And so, or, and even, I don't even think, I don't know, you can try timers or whatever the case, but still do the transitional activity. I think is necessary for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have timers involved, but
Yeah.
they're not hearing the timer necessarily. I'm the only one in control of the timer.
Mm,
I don't want a loud beep to disrupt what they're doing
right.
because they may be involved in the activity and I want to continue on. But as soon as they hear that beep, their brain naturally says, oh, time to do something different. So I usually have it just on my iPhone where I'm holding the iPhone in my pocket or it's by me so that they're not hearing it. And I do have it on a soft volume so that they can be doing everything. The thing that controls the timing is my voice. So I will
Yes.
use my voice to be all right, everyone, let's focus. And that works better than no one likes waking up to an alarm,
No,
right? And
no,
that's basically
no.
what it is. It's the alarm of, oh, now I have to go do something else. We don't
Right.
want that. So,
Yeah, that's school, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's what we're trying to avoid, which I absolutely love. And that is something that my mom was a genius at. She would have routines where, she would say, and I know you've done this before, where you teach the kids to where her thing was she would say dut 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 dut, and all
that,
kids would say dut dut, and she would silence an
yep,
entire elementary school auditorium
yeah,
like
that's genius.
instantaneously.
I'm stealing
It
that,
was
by
I've
the way.
seen her do it. It's
Yeah,
fabulous. There's the
that's
principal's like,
officially been
"Everybody
stolen.
be quiet. Everybody be quiet." And she comes in and just blasts it, and I'm like, "Oh, mic
Yep.
drop." Like, but
So,
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. And so, yeah, I love that my tendency is to not want to use timers because of the fact that I love being able to
yep.
dig into something if we want to and to be flexible in that way. But I love the fact that we have expectations about,
Yes.
this is what's happening when. That's beautiful. Spencer, is there anything you would first of all, we have to share about how these people get to some activities that are able for them to just just bring in, and here's a brain break, because I know you do that. So
Yes.
where do we find those activities?
So we are on the school platform, which is SKOOL.com, school platform. We have our own community there called Stronger Together Family. We do Monday through Friday, we do a 10-minute segment so that as an educator, we will give you about 3 to 5 minutes of the reasonings of why we want to approach it the way we're doing. And then we give you a drill every day. So Monday is what we call bounce, which is more about hand-eye coordination. We call it bounce because a lot of our drills are tennis ball based and or ball based, because those are easy, simple ways where very affordable. Everyone can afford a tennis ball. It's easy where they're not going to get hurt doing stuff. We're learning targeting. We're learning spatial awareness, kinesthetic awareness. We're learning hand-eye coordination and movement. So on Mondays, we do bounce. Tuesday is movement, where we're trying to teach how to coordinate our bodies, that cross-body coordination, developing flexibility as well. Wednesday is strength. Wednesday is balance. So like standing on one leg and stabilizing. So we learn how to coordinate. I call it fall prevention, so that when we're adults, we don't fall as often because we lost our balance or our ability to have balance. Thursday is strength. And then Friday is a catch-all known as athleticism, which is coordinating all 4 of the skills we just mentioned of bounce, movement, strength, and a balance. Now we're going to do a drill that has all of those involved so that we learn how to coordinate all of those. You can have really great balance, but if you have no strength, you're not physically literate in all the manners that are important. So SKOOL.com/Stronger Together Family is our community. It is a free community, so anyone can join. We will post every day There's also some courses on there on, as I mentioned, there's 3 levels of skill development: cognitive, associative, autonomous. We have courses on that. We have courses on for physical educators who are trying to get certified. We have our books on there on passing the state exams for those. So all the stuff that we do is on that platform for that community, because we really just want parents who weren't raised doing this stuff, right? PE teachers at least go to school for this. Now, granted, they maybe have done it 40 years ago and they're still trying to hold on to that gameplay model. And once again, there's nothing wrong with playing games. We all should be playing sports and games because they teach other things like teamwork, okay, building confidence. But we need to work on and focus on physical literacy. So we're teaching the drills that help improve the physical literacy on that platform so that everyone learns, including the parents. Well, if I have poor balance, I can do this with my kids. Guess what? Now I'm getting better at balance. Now I'm becoming more physically literate. Now my health is improving. So a lot of it is, which is homeschool parents need to be involved or should be involved with doing the activities their kids are doing. Well, guess what? The family that it gets healthy together lives happy together. So there's that rule.
Absolutely. And that's part of your culture. Remember, I'm
Yep.
all about creating that culture where love of learning gets and stays high. And that is a great way to be able to do things together to where you're setting the example, you're doing the stuff with them. And
Absolutely.
that's really beautiful. You guys, Spencer, do you see how I'm like so excited about having this conversation? This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, and not a lot of homeschool coaches or anybody like that out there is really talking about physical
Yeah.
education, because it's
Because
something that a lot of people don't focus on as an actual part of a great education. But this is something that is definitely, just like any other academic thing, is going to stay with them forever. So
absolutely.
I really, really appreciate having you on, Spencer, again. And I encourage everyone to go out to the school platform, Stronger Together Education Family, and get part of that community, because it's really fun and a really easy way to get your brain breaks in and train you so that you can get your brain breaks too, because
Absolutely.
mamas, we need it, right?
Yeah.
So thank
Adults are the same way. We
right.
we have a task to accomplish and we think, oh, well, I have to go and do this. There's actually an app I have. It's called the Pomodoro, where it sets a timer for 30. You can set it for 30 minutes and then it'll give you a 10-minute brain break, right? So adults, we get in the same way, because the kids' brains and the adult brains, it's still the same brain, right? We cannot think. We just have to do this. Sitting at a computer for an hour, we need to get up and move. We've been
I
trying to
agree.
instill it in workplaces for a couple of years now. So same with kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, you guys. I am so excited about having Spencer on today. I guarantee you that you are going to love the school platform. And then also, I want you to save the date and go to, in the show notes, we're going to put in the registration for the Homeschool Like a Boss workshop that is happening next Thursday, 1 week from today. So please make sure that you register for that. It's totally free. And you are going to learn how to rekindle that love of learning, and also how to think long term. I love it. And how to get started homeschooling, whether you're just getting started, already been homeschooling, and you just want a better functional flow. Brain breaks are part of that. But let's talk about that next Thursday in the Homeschool Like a Boss workshop. Thank you, Spencer. I will see you guys again next week. Bye bye.